The sun beat down mercilessly on the melting asphalt of Route 94. The heat seemed to cling to your skin like it wanted to stay forever. In the distance, a silhouette stood out against the barren landscape. A girl, no older than 16, walking with determined steps along the shoulder of the highway. Dust covered her boots and sweat beaded on her forehead, but she didn't stop. Her destination was clear. Lucy Rivers was on a mission. A few yards ahead rose an old wooden building with rusted signs, painted black with half-erased graffiti, and a winged skull over the entrance. The Black Crow. It wasn't just a bar, it was marked territory. The Sanctuary of the Steel Wolves, one of the most feared motorcycle gangs in the San Diego area. Anyone with common sense would have avoided even looking inside. Lucy crossed the threshold without hesitation. As soon as she entered, the air changed. The muted murmur of conversations, the clinking of glasses, and the deep sound of rock pouring from an old jukebox froze. Men in leather jackets, tattoos up to their necks, and knife-like stares turned their heads in unison. A kid, alone, in their den. The absurdity of the scene only intensified when they noticed what she was wearing. A worn leather vest with an original Steel Wolves patch sewn on the back. The silence was total. A huge guy with a graying beard and a scar across his cheek slowly rose from his chair. His name was Bull, one of the club's current leaders. He took 2 steps toward her, frowning. "Where'd you get that?" he asked in a deep voice, tension brewing in every word. Lucy didn't respond immediately. Instead, she walked toward the center of the place, crossing between the tables as if she owned it. Nobody dared stop her, though hands began closing around bottles, switchblades, and more than one felt for the pistol under his vest. She stopped in front of the bar and sat on the center bar stool, the one nobody had used in over 10 years. The very one that Stephen Rivers used to occupy, one of the club's founders. One who died like a hero, according to some, or like a fool, according to others. Lucy turned, rested her elbows on the bar, and looked straight at Bull, at all of them. "My name is Lucy Rivers," she said in a clear voice. "I'm Stephen's daughter, and you owe me something." A murmur traveled through the place like an electric shock. The name fell like thunder. Rivers. Some looked at each other in amazement, others in disbelief. There were those who swore Stephen had no family, that he died alone, that the fire consumed everything. But the patch on her back didn't lie. It was his, a unique design. Sewing it on without the right meant death. Bull approached, stopping just inches from the young woman. He towered over her by 3 heads, and his fists were like concrete blocks. He looked at her, searching for signs of deception, of manipulation. He found none. "That's impossible. Stephen died over 10 years ago. He didn't have a daughter. At least not that we knew of," he said, but his voice no longer sounded so certain. Lucy looked down, pulled a small wrinkled photo from her back pocket, and placed it on the bar. In the image, a young man with long hair and a defiant smile held a young girl in his arms. Both wore club vests. The same vest. "He had a daughter, and a promise. You said that if anything happened to him, you'd take care of his family. But my mum is sick. We have debts choking us. Nobody's come to ask about us. Nobody's kept their word." An uncomfortable silence took over the place. Nobody moved. Nobody drank. Only Lucy's words echoed like gunshots. In the back, an old member called Patches, with grey hair and a nostalgic look, stood up. He walked with difficulty, as if the weight of the years pressed on his knees. He approached the bar, took the photo, observed it for a long moment, and nodded. "It's her. I saw her when she was a baby. Stephen used to bring her to meetings when he had nobody to leave her with. His old lady was good people. Her name was Mary, wasn't it?" Lucy nodded slowly, her eyes loaded with emotion, but no tears. She had learned not to cry in front of strangers. Bull looked away, angry at himself, at everyone. He slammed his hand on the bar and muttered something nobody understood. "So what do you want from us?" he finally asked, his voice lower. "Justice," Lucy answered without hesitation. "I don't want charity. I didn't come to beg. I came to remind you who my father was, what he taught you, and what you promised. If you don't care anymore, I'll leave now." But if there's still any honor left in this place, then prove it." The words hung in the air like blades. One by one, members began to lower their gaze. The beers lost their flavor. The background music kept playing, but nobody heard it. Only Lucy. The Black Crow had never been so quiet. And for the first time in many years, the Steel Wolves felt shame. The atmosphere inside the Black Crow remained heavy, as if the air itself refused to move. The men who once roared powerfully down California's highways now kept silent, confronted with something more fearsome than any rival gang: their past. Lucy remained seated on the center bar stool, back straight, eyes steady, and her father's vest shining like a living scar among the bar's shadows. Nobody had kicked her out. Nobody had dared. Bull took a breath and stepped away. He walked to a corner, lit a cigarette with trembling hands, and let the smoke cover his face. It wasn't fear he felt. It was something deeper, a wound he thought had healed. "Do you guys have any idea how my dad died?" Lucy suddenly asked, breaking the silence. Patches lowered his head. Some shifted uncomfortably, but nobody answered. "I'll tell you, even though you already know." Lucy stood up and walked to the center of the place. Her voice sounded calm but loaded with pain. It was on Route 94. A family was trapped in their car after a crash. Nobody stopped. Nobody wanted to get involved. But my father did. He got off his bike, broke the windows with his bare hands, pulled the kids out one by one. The mother's leg was stuck. He helped her, and when he was about to get out, the car exploded. An explosion of memory shook the group. Several remembered that afternoon, the smell of gasoline, the screams, the black smoke rising like a curse. Lucy looked at them one by one. "And where were you guys?" Patches was the first to speak. His voice was barely a whisper. "I was there. I saw how he did it. I saw how he didn't hesitate for a second. And I also saw how nobody followed him. We just watched him disappear into the flames." A thick silence fell again. "After that," Patches continued, "the club changed. We became cold. We stopped doing community runs, stopped protecting our own. We locked ourselves away, and with that, we betrayed everything Stephen stood for." Bull crushed the cigarette butt on the bar in anger. "It wasn't that simple," he roared. "We were broken. We didn't know how to go on without him. He was our North Star. Without Stephen, the club lost its soul." Lucy didn't flinch. "And that's why you let my mother get sick alone. Made her sell everything to pay for medicine. Made me grow up believing my father died for nothing." Her words hit like closed fists. One of the younger ones, nicknamed Shadow, looked down. He never knew Stephen, but he'd heard the stories. He always thought they were legends. Now faced with this girl, he felt ashamed for having doubted. "He asked you to take care of us," Lucy insisted. "He said that if anything happened to him, the wolves would be there. But nobody showed up, not a call, not a damn dollar." Patches leaned on the bar. His face, weathered by time, looked even older in that moment. "We failed, all of us. We hid behind our patches, pretending to be strong when we were really rotting inside. But it's not too late." Bull looked at him angrily. "And what do you suggest? Go back to being Desert Boy Scouts, do fundraisers and clean parks?" "I suggest we get our purpose back," Patches responded without wavering. "That we honor Stephen's memory, that we take care of his daughter, like we promised, and that we recover what we were." A murmur of approval began to grow among those present. It wasn't shouting or cheers. It was something stronger, conviction. "Count me in," said Shadow. "I never knew Stephen, but if he was like they say, I want to be part of that." "Count on me too," another added. "I'm sick of feeling like all this means nothing." Bull grunted but said nothing more. He sat down, crossed his arms, and watched Lucy, as if seeing a ghost with the voice of a lost leader. "Where's your mother now?" he finally asked. "At home, she's bedridden, can barely walk, and if we don't pay for the medication this week—" Lucy swallowed hard but stood firm. "I don't want your pity. I want you to keep your word. That's all." Bull stood up. "Then start talking. Tell us what you need." Lucy looked at him. For the first time, she lowered her guard a little. Her voice broke for just a second. "I need her not to die. I need my mother not to die." And with those words, the broken pact began to mend. Not with blood, with memory. The old truck's engine rumbled as it moved through the streets of a neighborhood forgotten by the city. In the bed were tools, lumber, paint, cables, and above all a group of bikers hardened by the years, who for the first time in a long while weren't going to destroy something, but to build it. Lucy came to the door of her house, surprised. She didn't expect them to keep their word so fast. Bull, Patches, Shadow, and 6 other steel wolves were there, in front of her rundown house, vests on and sleeves rolled up. "What's this?" Lucy asked cautiously. "It's the first step," said Patches, smiling with a sincerity that lit up his face. "We're going to fix this house. It's not charity, it's a debt." For days, neighbors witnessed the impossible. Tattooed bikers with hard faces carrying cement bags, changing windows, raising walls, and at the center of it all, Lucy, mixing paint, helping with hammer in hand, learning what it meant to rebuild from ruins. But not everyone saw it favorably. One afternoon, while Bull was installing a new door, a couple of bikes not belonging to the club parked across the street. 2 guys with Southern Crows vests got off with defiant steps. "Now you're doing community service?" said one of them, spitting near the porch. "What's next? Handing out donuts at church?" Bull wiped his hands, walked toward them without saying a word, and looked them in the eyes. Lucy watched from the entrance. Nobody moved. "We don't forget our promises," Bull finally responded. "You should try it sometime." The Crows laughed but left. Still, the message was clear. The wolves were no longer scary. Their new direction had weakened them, at least in the eyes of their enemies. That night, at the Black Crow, the atmosphere was tense. Some members were arguing heatedly. "Since when are we construction workers?" roared Curly, one of the oldest. "This isn't what we signed up for when we joined. They're seeing us as clowns." "They're seeing us as men who keep their word," Patches responded. "If that makes you uncomfortable, there are other clubs out there that fit you better." "This isn't a club, it's a damn charity," another yelled. Lucy, who was in the back, stood up and walked up to them. Everyone fell silent when they saw her. "If this isn't a club, then what was everything you promised me about protecting family, about brotherhood? My dad gave his life for that." Her voice trembled with rage. "If you just want to fight, steal, and run from cops, that's on you. But don't use my father's name for that." And with that she left, leaving a dense silence that not even the most rebellious dared to break. Over time, the change became real. The wolves began organizing charity events, raffles, hospital fundraisers, donations to orphanages. Lucy designed the posters, distributed them around the city, and even spoke in public. There was something in her voice, a mix of fire and conviction that ignited those who heard her. She became the symbol of the club's new spirit. And in the midst of that one night, while organizing old files in the back office of the Black Crow, she found something. A metal box, closed with a rusted padlock. Inside, documents, photographs, and a handwritten letter. It was from her father. The letter talked about tensions in the club before his death. Stephen suspected someone was leaking information to rival gangs, that they were watching him, that they wanted him out. It mentioned secret meetings, strange movements, and a name scribbled in the margin, Eli. Lucy didn't know any Eli, at least not in the current club. She kept the letter, trembling. Her father hadn't died just from being a hero. They had set him up. And someone, perhaps someone who still wore the patch, had known all this time. She said nothing. Not yet. A week later, while helping load groceries at a community kitchen, a Southern Crows gang member appeared. He carried a bottle with gasoline. He threatened to burn down her house if the wolves didn't abandon his territory. Lucy didn't hesitate. She walked up until she was a yard away from him, eyes fixed and voice icy. "Do it, but don't run when they all come for you. Because I'm not alone anymore, and you know it." The guy looked at her, measured her conviction, and backed down. That night, Bull told her, "You don't seem like Stephen's daughter. You seem like him." And for the first time, Lucy smiled, not from pride, but from legacy. The plaza in the El Florido neighborhood had never been so full. The roar of motorcycles came from every cardinal direction. Families came out to watch, somewhere between fearful and curious. But instead of chains, bottles, or threats, what the Steel Wolves brought this time were trucks with groceries, toys, medicine, and books. An improvised stage had been set up in front of the Central Park. A large banner hung over it, Road Festival United for the Community. And at the center of everything, like a human compass, stood Lucy. She wore worn jeans, a black t-shirt, and over her shoulders, her father's old vest. She had painted a white stripe on the back herself that read, "For what we were, for what we'll be." Kids ran with their ice cream. Adults thanked them with applause for each delivery. Lucy had achieved the impossible. The wolves, once feared as beasts of the asphalt, were now seen as allies, redeemed not by weapons, but by actions. When afternoon fell, Bull climbed onto the stage. His voice boomed through the speakers with a tone rare for him: emotion. Many years ago, this club was founded by men who not only knew how to ride motorcycles, but also how to ride through life. One of them was Stephen Rivers. Today, his legacy lives on, not just in memory, but in flesh and blood. The crowd applauded. Lucy felt her heart pounding in her chest. "Lucy," Bull continued, "your father taught us what it meant to be a wolf. You reminded us of that. You pulled us out of the dust, and for that, we want to give you something that represents what you've done and what you are now." Patches approached from the other end of the stage. He carried something wrapped in a club flag. He unwrapped it carefully and, in front of everyone, lifted a new vest. Black. Impeccable. On the back, a unique patch, a white wolf with its back on fire, and below, words embroidered in silver. Heir to the road. Lucy Rivers, daughter of Stephen Lucy, took it with trembling hands. She breathed deeply. Then she took out a needle, red thread, and in front of everyone began to sew the new patch right next to the original one, her father's. Each stitch was like an unspoken word, a new promise. When she finished, the crowd rose in applause. Even the hardest wolves had glassy eyes. But the night wasn't over yet. In a corner of the event, Patches stepped away, followed by Bull and a couple of veterans. They waited for him under a dark tent. In front of them, sitting in a plastic chair, was an older man with a poorly kept beard and a steel wolf's patch covered with dust and shame. "Eli," said Patches in a grave tone, "it's time." The man looked up. He didn't seem surprised, just tired. "You know already, don't you?" "Enough," said Bull. "Stephen's letter, your visits to the East Cartel guys, the accident that wasn't an accident." Eli nodded, defeated. "I never wanted him to die. We just wanted him to step down. He was too straight. He was going to destroy everything we'd built." "He was the best of us," said Patches, containing his rage. At that moment, Lucy appeared behind them. Nobody had called her, but she knew. "He betrayed him?" she asked with a firm voice. The silence was answer enough. Lucy approached Eli, looked him in the eyes. The old man didn't dare raise his gaze. "I could demand you kick him out of the club," she said. "Expel him, expose him, but I won't." Everyone looked at her, bewildered. "My father believed in you. Even knowing some wanted him out, he didn't abandon ship. He didn't seek revenge. He sought justice, through his actions." She turned toward the crowd, still celebrating in the distance. "I don't care if you hate him. I care that nobody else forgets, that every action from now on proves the wolves learned, that they changed, that Stephen's legacy isn't stained with hatred, but cleaned with courage." Patches breathed deeply. Bull looked down. Eli broke into tears. Lucy turned and walked back to the light of the event. She walked with her head held high, the vest shining with two patches sewn side by side, as if the story of father and daughter intertwined forever. And as the music started playing again and kids laughed, something became clear that nobody could deny. The road had a new heir,